In the early 1960s, in a quiet town in Pennsylvania, there was a secluded house known as the Keystone Estate. The house had an unsettling reputation, but the O'Hara family, eager for a fresh start, purchased it despite the rumors. They were soon to discover that some stories are better left untold. The O'Hara family consisted of the parents, James and Linda, and their two children, Emily and Tom. They moved into the estate in the fall of 1963. The house had an eerie charm with its grand architecture and overgrown garden. It was a perfect escape from the hustle of city life, but they were unaware of the darkness that lingered within its walls. Shortly after moving in, strange things began to happen. The family would hear unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty halls and whispering voices drifting from the walls. At first, they dismissed these occurrences as the quirks of an old house. But as the days went by, the phenomena grew more disturbing. One night, James was awoken by a cold draft. He walked downstairs to find the front door wide open, despite the fact that he was certain it was locked. He closed the door and locked it, but the unsettling feeling lingered. That same night, Emily reported seeing shadowy figures moving in her room. She described them as dark and twisted, and claimed they watched her from the corners of the room. Tom, too, experienced strange occurrences, like his toys moving on their own and a chilling voice calling his name in the dead of night. Linda, growing increasingly worried, began to investigate the history of the house. She discovered that the Keystone Estate had a grim past. In the early 1900s, the house was the site of a series of tragic events. It had been home to a wealthy family whose daughter, a young girl named Abigail, had gone missing. The family searched for her tirelessly, but she was never found. The estate had since been plagued by rumors of her ghost wandering the halls, and some locals spoke of a malevolent presence connected to her disappearance. Determined to find out more, Linda visited the local archives and found old newspapers reporting strange and tragic events related to the house. One article described a neighbor who had claimed to see a girl's ghostly figure in the garden, crying for help. The ghostly apparitions in the house, combined with the unsettling history, suggested a presence tied to the lost Abigail. One fateful night, as a thunderstorm raged outside, the O'Hara family experienced the most horrifying event yet. Emily was found in her bed, frozen with terror, claiming that Abigail's ghost had visited her, begging for help and revealing that something terrible had happened to her. The family was so shaken that they decided to leave the estate immediately. The O'Hara family moved out, and the Keystone Estate was left to deteriorate. The house was abandoned, its stories becoming whispers among locals. Though no one lived there afterward, the tale of the Keystone Estate and its haunted past remained a chilling legend. To this day, the estate stands as a grim reminder of its tragic history, with locals recounting tales of eerie lights flickering in the windows and ghostly figures seen wandering the overgrown grounds. Some say Abigail's spirit still roams the halls, forever trapped in the place where her tragic story began. In the years following the O'Hara family's abrupt departure, the Keystone Estate became a subject of local fascination and dread. The house, now shrouded in ivy and neglect, stood as a crumbling relic of its tragic past. Despite the chilling stories that surrounded it, there were always a few brave or perhaps foolhardy souls who ventured near the estate, driven by curiosity or a sense of adventure. One such person was Thomas Blake, a local historian with a passion for uncovering forgotten stories. He had heard whispers about the Keystone Estate since he was a child and decided to research the house more thoroughly. Determined to separate fact from fiction, Thomas spent months gathering old documents, talking to locals, and piecing together the estate's troubled history. During his research, Thomas came across a peculiar diary in the town archives. It belonged to Abigail's mother, Eleanor, and contained entries written during the time of Abigail's disappearance. The diary was filled with heart-wrenching pleas for her daughter's safe return and detailed descriptions of unsettling occurrences in the house. One entry, in particular, stood out. Eleanor described a chilling encounter with what she referred to as dark shadows that seemed to torment her family in their search for Abigail. The diary also contained a sketch of a hidden room within the house, which Eleanor believed held the key to her daughter's disappearance. The room, described as being concealed behind a bookcase in the library, had never been found, even during renovations. Intrigued, Thomas decided to investigate the house himself. Armed with a flashlight, a camera, and a sense of trepidation, he made his way to the estate one foggy evening. The house loomed before him, its once grand facade now a haunting silhouette against the moonlit sky. As Thomas entered the estate, he was struck by an overwhelming sense of cold and abandonment. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was occasionally broken by the creaking of the old structure. He carefully made his way to the library, guided by the directions from Eleanor's diary. The room was dark and filled with old, tattered books that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. Following the diary's instructions, Thomas searched for the hidden bookcase. After some effort, he discovered a loose panel behind a row of dusty volumes. He managed to pry it open, revealing a narrow passageway leading to a hidden chamber. Inside, Thomas found a room that appeared to be frozen in time. It was filled with old furniture, a child's toys, and a small bed. But what caught his attention was a dusty, ornate mirror positioned in the corner of the room. The mirror's surface was clouded with age, but as Thomas wiped it clean, he gasped in horror. Reflected in the mirror was not just the room's dim interior, but also a faint, ghostly figure standing behind him. It was the spectral form of a young girl, Abigail. Her eyes, filled with sadness and an almost pleading expression, seemed to reach out to Thomas. He felt an icy chill run down his spine as he turned around, but the room was empty. Thomas took a series of photographs, hoping they would capture the ghostly presence. As he left the estate, he couldn't shake the feeling that Abigail's spirit was still trapped in that hidden room, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. Upon returning to town, Thomas shared his findings and the photographs with the local community. The images were startling and brought renewed interest to the legend of the Keystone Estate. Paranormal investigators and curious visitors began to flock to the site, hoping to experience the phenomena for themselves. Though the estate remained abandoned, its story continued to captivate and terrify those who dared to explore its shadowy corners. The Keystone Estate became a symbol of unresolved sorrow and spectral longing, a place where the line between the living and the dead seemed especially thin. The tale of Abigail's ghost persisted as a chilling reminder that some places are forever haunted by the echoes of their past, and that the restless spirits of those who suffered might linger long after their stories have faded into the darkness. In the wake of Thomas Blake's discovery, the Keystone Estate's notoriety grew, drawing the attention of paranormal researchers and thrill-seekers alike. The photographs Thomas took, which seemed to capture the ghostly figure of Abigail, ignited a firestorm of speculation. The estate was soon known as one of the most haunted locations in the region. Among those intrigued was Dr. Helen Carter, a renowned paranormal investigator with a reputation for debunking myths and uncovering hidden truths. Determined to get to the bottom of the Keystone Estate's mysteries, Dr. Carter arrived with her team, equipped with advanced equipment including EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recorders, thermal cameras, and motion detectors. Dr. Carter and her team set up their base in the grand entry hall of the estate. They meticulously documented their surroundings and began their investigation late into the evening. As the team worked, the house seemed to come alive with a series of eerie phenomena. Doors creaked open and shut on their own. Cold spots were detected throughout the rooms, and their equipment registered inexplicable energy fluctuations. The team's EVP recorders picked up chilling voices in the background, soft, sorrowful whispers that seemed to repeat phrases like, "Help me," and "Lost." These voices were not audible to the human ear but were clearly captured on the recordings. Dr. Carter reviewed the footage and audio with a growing sense of unease. One night, as the investigation reached its peak, the team decided to explore the hidden room discovered by Thomas. They entered the concealed chamber with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. The room, with its musty air and forgotten relics, seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Dr. Carter stood before the ornate mirror that Thomas had previously uncovered, its surface now eerily pristine. As she examined the mirror, the temperature in the room plummeted. Her breath became visible in the cold air, and her team members reported seeing shadowy figures flitting past the corners of their vision. Dr. Carter decided to conduct a séance, hoping to communicate directly with any spirits present. The séance began with a heavy atmosphere, and as the team members formed a circle around the mirror, the room grew increasingly tense. Dr. Carter called out to any spirits willing to communicate, asking about their story and their connection to the house. The air seemed to vibrate with a palpable sense of longing. Then, the room's temperature dropped even further, and the mirror began to fog up. A message began to form on the glass, written in a script that seemed to be scrawled by an unseen hand. The words were chilling. "Help me find peace." The message seemed to be from Abigail, and Dr. Carter and her team felt a surge of urgency to uncover the truth behind the girl's tragic fate. They pored over historical records, interviewing local historians and old-timers who might have remembered more about the estate. They learned of a forgotten detail. Abigail had been seen playing in the garden with a group of local children, and there had been rumors of a secret passageway beneath the estate, leading to an old well that had been filled in many years before. Following these leads, Dr. Carter and her team investigated the garden. They found an old, overgrown well that had been partially unearthed by time. With great effort, they cleared away the debris and discovered a hidden tunnel leading underground. The tunnel, dark and musty, seemed to stretch on for miles. At the end of the tunnel, the team found a small, old storage room. Inside, they discovered a long-lost wooden chest, covered in dust and cobwebs. The chest contained various items: old toys, clothes, and a small, rusted locket. Inside the locket was a portrait of a young girl, Abigail. Dr. Carter and her team carefully extracted the locket and other items, taking them back to the estate's hidden room. They placed them near the mirror, hoping it would provide a sense of closure. The room's temperature gradually returned to normal, and the oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift. In the following days, Dr. Carter and her team held a small, respectful ceremony at the estate to honor Abigail. They placed the locket and the other items in a memorial box and buried it near the old well. The ceremony, attended by local residents and the descendants of the O'Hara family, was marked by a sense of solemnity and reflection. The Keystone Estate remained abandoned but was no longer just a haunted legend. It had become a place of remembrance and respect for a tragic story that had been buried in the shadows for too long. The presence of Abigail's spirit seemed to have found some semblance of peace, and the eerie phenomena that had plagued the estate subsided. Though the house still stood as a somber reminder of the past, its reputation changed from one of terror to one of a poignant tale of loss and redemption. The Keystone Estate became a place where the echoes of history and the restless spirits found a semblance of rest, leaving behind only whispers of a story finally brought to light. After Dr. Helen Carter's investigation and the subsequent memorial ceremony, the Keystone Estate's aura of mystery began to shift. Though the haunting activities had diminished, the estate remained a focal point of local interest and scholarly study. Researchers, historians, and even amateur ghost hunters continued to visit the estate, drawn by its compelling history and the newfound sense of closure surrounding Abigail's story. However, as months passed, a new series of unsettling events began to unfold, suggesting that the estate was far from being entirely at peace. It started with small, seemingly inconsequential occurrences: objects moving slightly out of place, whispers in the dark, and inexplicable cold spots. At first, these events were dismissed as remnants of the past or the effects of an old building settling. But as the phenomena grew more intense, it became clear that something new was afoot. Dr. Carter, now working closely with local historians and paranormal experts, was alerted to the resurgence of disturbances at the estate. Determined to uncover the cause, she returned to the Keystone Estate with her team for a follow-up investigation. They set up their equipment once again, focusing on areas where the disturbances had been reported. During their second visit, the team found themselves drawn to the old library, the site of their previous discoveries. It was there that they noticed something peculiar. The temperature fluctuations and sudden drops in electromagnetic readings seemed to converge around a specific section of the room. As they investigated further, they discovered that the bookcase concealing the hidden room had been slightly disturbed. The team carefully removed the books and pried open the secret panel once again. This time, the hidden chamber revealed an unexpected sight. A second, more concealed compartment within the room. Inside this newly discovered compartment, they found a collection of items that were not there before. Among them were old, handwritten letters, photographs, and a diary that seemed to belong to Eleanor, Abigail's mother. The diary contained cryptic entries that hinted at a deeper and more disturbing mystery than previously uncovered. One of the most disturbing entries described Eleanor's growing fear of an ominous presence she felt in the house. She mentioned feeling watched and experiencing malevolent whispers that did not belong to Abigail. Eleanor wrote about a dark force that she believed had taken root in the estate, something that had existed long before her daughter's disappearance. The team also found a photograph of a man who was not previously mentioned in any records, a shadowy figure with an unknown connection to the estate. Dr. Carter and her team began to piece together a theory that there might have been another entity involved in the estate's haunting, one that predated Abigail's tragic story. Their investigation led them to delve into local records and oral histories, uncovering tales of a man named Victor Blackwood. Blackwood was rumored to have been involved in dark practices and was said to have lived in the area around the time the estate was built. Legends spoke of his dealings with the occult and a secret ritual that went horribly wrong. Dr. Carter and her team tracked down old documents that detailed a series of mysterious disappearances and strange occurrences linked to Blackwood. It became apparent that he might have been using the estate as a base for his dark rituals. Abigail's disappearance and the subsequent haunting of the estate could have been a consequence of these malevolent practices. As they continued their research, the team learned that Blackwood had vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a legacy of fear and suspicion. The investigation revealed that his dark influence might have left lingering effects on the estate, even after his departure. Determined to address this new layer of the estate's haunting, Dr. Carter organized a final, comprehensive investigation. This time, the focus was on performing a ritual intended to cleanse the estate of any residual dark forces connected to Blackwood's practices. The team, along with local spiritual leaders, conducted the ritual in the hidden chamber where the dark presence seemed strongest. The ritual was performed with solemn respect and careful preparation. The participants chanted ancient prayers and performed purification rites, hoping to dispel any lingering malevolent energies. During the ritual, the team reported intense fluctuations in the environment, including sudden gusts of wind and flickering lights. Despite the eerie sensations, they persisted with their work, driven by a sense of urgency. As the ritual concluded, the atmosphere in the estate seemed to shift. The oppressive energy that had once pervaded the house lifted, and a calm settled over the Keystone Estate. The disturbances that had plagued the estate seemed to cease, leaving behind a newfound tranquility. In the following months, the Keystone Estate was noticeably quieter. The lingering sense of dread that had once overshadowed it was replaced by a more peaceful aura. While the estate remained a place of historical significance, the haunting phenomena seemed to have been resolved, at least for the time being. Dr. Carter and her team left the estate with a sense of accomplishment, having addressed not just the ghostly presence of Abigail, but also the dark forces that had complicated the estate's legacy. The Keystone Estate remained a powerful reminder of the intersection between history, legend, and the supernatural, a place where the echoes of the past were finally brought to light and laid to rest. With the completion of the cleansing ritual, the Keystone Estate began to undergo a notable transformation. The once foreboding atmosphere gave way to an unexpected serenity, and the stories of eerie occurrences diminished as word spread that the estate's dark past had been addressed. Dr. Helen Carter and her team left the estate with a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. They had managed to uncover hidden truths and confront the malevolent forces that had plagued the house. The estate's dark legacy seemed to be finally laid to rest, and the house itself began to change in subtle ways. As the years passed, the Keystone Estate was gradually restored to its former glory. Local preservationists and historians took an interest in the house, ensuring that its storied past was preserved while making it a safe and welcoming place. The estate was transformed into a historical site, and tours were conducted to share its rich and complex history with visitors. The story of Abigail O'Hara and the estate's haunting became a cautionary tale of loss, darkness, and the enduring quest for peace. The estate's new role as a historical landmark allowed for reflection and remembrance rather than fear. Visitors came to learn about the estate's past and the efforts made to resolve its dark legacy. One day, as the estate celebrated its reopening to the public, a special event was held to honor those who had worked to uncover and address the estate's haunting. Dr. Carter, Thomas Blake, and the local community gathered for a ceremony to mark the occasion. During the event, they unveiled a plaque dedicated to Abigail and her family, acknowledging the tragic events and the subsequent efforts to bring peace to the estate. The plaque was inscribed with a simple yet profound message: in memory of Abigail O'Hara and all those who sought to find peace. May this place stand as a testament to the power of truth, compassion, and the unyielding search for resolution. As the plaque was unveiled, the atmosphere of the estate felt lighter, as if acknowledging and honoring the past had brought a sense of closure. The house, once a symbol of terror and sorrow, now stood as a beacon of historical reflection and respectful remembrance. The Keystone Estate became a place where people came to connect with history and to reflect on the trials and triumphs of those who had come before. While the ghostly tales of the past were part of its legacy, the estate's new purpose was to educate, honor, and offer a space for contemplation. Dr. Carter, now retired, looked back on her involvement with a sense of fulfillment. The Keystone Estate had been a challenging and profound journey, but it had ultimately led to a resolution that brought peace not only to the house but also to the people connected to its story. The estate, once shrouded in darkness and fear, was now a place where the echoes of the past could be heard but no longer haunted. It stood as a testament to the power of understanding and compassion in addressing the shadows of history. In the quiet moments of twilight, as the sun set over the Keystone Estate, the house stood serene and still. The whispers of the past were no longer threats but rather gentle reminders of a story that had been brought to light and laid to rest. And so, the Keystone Estate, with its complex history and enduring legacy, became a symbol of reconciliation and peace, a place where the past and present coexisted in respectful harmony.